come up here so you can actually see, like,
we're good.
down. All right, so here we have the radiator's been removed so that we could remove the valve cover gasket, and these are your intake. This is your intake cam right here. This is your exhaust cam. So they have different specs. The spec for the intake cams are between 7 1,000ths and 9 1,000ths. We're pretty sure that this bike hasn't been checked anytime within at least the last 30,000 miles or so. So we're just going to go ahead and take the tightest spec, which is 7 1,000ths. I always take a Sharpie and write 7 on there for 7 1,000ths and take it off the set just so it's easier to use. And we're going to go ahead and try to slide this under. You need to slide it under the camshaft that isn't interfacing with the valve. So as you see, the lobe here is facing up. That means that I can check this one. Now, if this was in, this is the tightest spec, so if this was in spec, this should be able to slide pretty freely in between the camshaft and the valve seat there. And if you look, see how it's flexing? It does not fit. So since this is the feeler gauge for the tightest spec, and we know that the valves are always getting tighter, we know this one is out of spec. Now, the manual will tell you you need to rotate the engine to check each one of these, but I just know from experience that by looking at the cam lobes of this, that it's also possible to check this one at this time, so because it's not interfacing with the valves. All right, that one is too tight. That is not in spec, although it seemed close.
What do you got on there? 7?
7 for 7 1,000ths, so that's the tightest spec. So, and that one is also not going in. And then, so this is the number 4 cylinder. Both intake valves are out of spec. This is the number 3 cylinder. Both intake valves are out of spec. These 2 cylinders, this is cylinder 1, this is cylinder 2, I cannot check these without turning the motor because this camshaft is actually pushing down on the intake valves right now, and this one is either pressing on them or is very close to. So I would, I could try to check that one, but it wouldn't be an accurate measurement anyway. They either need to be facing up or they need to be mostly up so that you can get an accurate measurement. So that's intake right now. So what I'm going to do is, now that we know that they're out of spec because we've tried the tightest one that is still in spec, I'm going to move on, grab my other feelers. This one's 6 1,000ths, and I've also got a 5 1,000ths right here. So what we're going to do is just move down and try to slide these in here, stepping down by 1 1,000th at a time until we find one that slides in like it's supposed to. So going back here, that also does not fit. So it doesn't fit. So we know that it's tighter than 6 1,000ths. All right, it fits in that one. So the first valve on the 4th camshaft is, we know that is out of spec by 1 1,000th of an inch. The least spec that it needed to be was 7 1,000ths of an inch. It came in at 6 1,000ths of an inch. So barely out of spec, but still out of spec. So that's going to have to be changed. So now we're going to move over to this one. All right, slides right in there. Same deal. Same deal. It's 1 1,000th out of spec. And this guy slides right in there, so we know. This
and
one,
the
this one,
feelers are just
so you can get in there. Yeah, I actually have a set of straight ones over there, and you can use them because these are flexible. So, but this is just already like natural to go in there, which is why I use the angled ones. You can go either way if you want to. So now, the only one that is in question right now is the very last valve to the right on the intake side on cylinder 4. So we're going to move down to 5 1,000ths of an inch, which I've got labeled with my Sharpie there, and slide in under there, and it slides right in. So
it's 2,000ths out.
2,000ths too tight. So this one needs a shim that is a minimum of 2 1,000ths thinner.
But you'll go more.
And I'll explain that a little bit more. And these are all 1/1000th out of spec. So let me come over here and look at my sheet real quick. I had already measured these. So this is just kind of my diagram. For the work, I kind of just put out, I'm changing the spark plug. So I have my spark plug foot-pounds per torque, 12 foot-pounds. The valve cover, obviously the valve cover we knew was coming off. So that'll be reinstalled at 7 foot-pounds. These are the intake specs. 8 1/1000ths of an inch plus or minus 1/1000th. So that's I just wrote that just notes. We know we need to be in between 7 1/1000ths and 9 1/1000ths on the intake. The exhausts are a little bit looser. They're between 10 and 12 1/1000ths, which is 11 1/1000ths plus or minus a 1/1000th. And right here, so this is just, I would do this. You need to make a diagram, especially I was confident that we were going to have to adjust these. So right there, desired spec, same thing. That's why they are there. So I'm going to move all that information down to here. This is the actual specs that I measured. You know, there's 2 valves per cylinder. So here's all your cylinders. 1, 2, 3, 4. One is on the left of the bike when you're sitting on the bike, and we're moving backwards just because of the way that the valve train was sitting when we took the head off. So this has not been timed. We haven't put it to top dead center yet. We will do that before we start disassembling it. And so now what we're going to do is the 3 and the 4 cylinder, we're obviously in position to be checked right now. Those will not be able to be checked right now with the current engine position. So what we're going to do is move over to the exhaust size, because there will be at least 1 or 2 that can be checked right now. So I'm going to get my feeler gauges. So I have my 12 and I have my 10, and I do have an 11. Okay, so that's the whole range. We're guessing they're probably going to be out of spec, so I'm just going to go ahead and start with the tightest one, 10. We know if the 10 doesn't slide in, they're out of spec, and then we have to go back and check them, find out what the exact spec is, and then we'll adjust them from there. So let's go ahead and come over here with the camera. Let's take a look at it real quick and see which one's lobes are up. Okay, so the cylinder 1, I can tell the lobes are pointing up and towards me, so those should be able to be checked. And cylinder 3 as well. So what I'm going to go ahead and do is just check those. Might be kind of, these ones are a little bit trickier because they're down in the front and facing forward. There you go. Okay, that actually is in spec, but it seems pretty tight. So that's probably right on the edge of spec. That also worked, so we know. And then I'll go over here. Oh, that works. And that works. So so far we're in spec with at least half of our exhaust valves. So I'm going to move up 1 1/1000th of an inch. And then if these are actually at spec, which is what this one is, this is right in the middle of the spec, then I will not adjust these. But if it's a little bit, I can go into that a little bit more later. If they're on the tight end of the spec, like that's the only feeler gauge that fits, I will adjust them, since we're in here and we're going to be adjusting other stuff anyway. It's always better to set them into the looser end of the spec. Okay, that doesn't, this is the 11 1/1000th, so this is the spec and it does not fit. Oh, fits on that one. So
Very tight though.
so far we know this one is 10 1/1000ths. This one is 2 spec but tight. Yeah, it's definitely on the tighter side, but it does go. Come over here. All right, that did not seem like it was gonna go. Nope. Oh, that one barely does. Okay, so we have a 1.
Yeah.
1 where it went, the first one. Was it the first
And it's
one or
still
the second
tight.
one?
I think second.
Second one. Okay, because I gotta write my measurements down. Okay, so we had this one. First one it didn't go. All the other ones it did. So still tight though. So it's up. Ultimately, if I have the shims available in the kit, what I'm probably going to do is change them anyway. Just put them on the looser end of the spec. I'll decrease